Nerdrotic and Gary just dropped even more details about that Spider-Man vs. X-Men opening, and somehow it's even crazier than what we heard before. This isn't just Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man getting attacked by mutants in some random moment. The film apparently opens with Tobey, literally in the middle of fighting Doc Ock during the events of Spider-Man 2, his most iconic movie, when the X-Men suddenly show up out of nowhere and attack both of them. Tobey and Otto Octavius are forced to team up against the mutants, they lose the fight, and then the entire universe gets destroyed while we watch. This would be the most devastating opening in MCU history, taking one of the most beloved Spider-Man films ever made and showing us its destruction in real time. And according to these leaks, this reveals something huge about the X-Men's role in Doomsday. They already know about incursions, and they're actively going around destroying other universes to save their own. So let's break down these new details and why this changes everything we thought we knew about how this movie starts. We're not just getting a generic Tobey Maguire Spider-Man appearance. The movie is opening during the actual events of Spider-Man 2, meaning audiences will immediately recognize exactly where in the timeline this is happening. Maybe it's during the train fight, maybe it's during the laboratory battle, but whatever iconic moment they choose, we'll know it. Tobey is in the middle of fighting Doc Ock, trying to stop him from whatever scheme he's cooking up with the fusion reactor or the tritium, and suddenly a portal opens. The X-Men step through, and they're not there to help. They attack both Spider-Man and Doc Ock indiscriminately, because from their perspective, this entire universe needs to be destroyed to prevent an incursion from spreading to other realities. Tobey and Otto, who seconds ago were trying to kill each other, suddenly have to work together against this overwhelming threat. Two enemies forced into an alliance because something worse just showed up. But they're not ready for this. They don't understand what's happening, why these mutants are attacking, or what an incursion even is. They fight as hard as they can, but the X-Men are prepared, coordinated, and they win decisively. This detail changes everything about how devastating the opening will be. If it was just Tobey in some undefined moment getting attacked, that would be sad but abstract. But showing us Spider-Man 2, a movie that an entire generation holds sacred, and then destroying it mid-story, that's brutal on a completely different level. We know this timeline. We've watched this movie dozens of times. We know Mary Jane is waiting for Peter somewhere in this universe. We know Aunt May is giving him advice about being a hero. We know Harry is spiraling after his father's death. All of those people, all of those relationships, all of that history gets erased while we watch. And Doc Ock, who was supposed to get his redemption arc by the end of Spider-Man 2, presumably dies here alongside everyone else when the universe collapses. He never gets that moment of clarity where he realizes what he's become. He just ceases to exist along with everything else in that reality. The X-Men don't stick around to watch. They complete their mission, open another portal, and move on to the next universe that needs to be destroyed, leaving nothing behind but void. But according to the rumors, Tobey doesn't die with his universe. Loki intervenes at the last possible second, pulling him out of the collapsing reality right before it completely disintegrates. This confirms what we've been hearing for weeks about Loki building a team of multiversal avengers, recruiting specific heroes from dying realities to fight in the larger war. Tobey gets yanked through time and space, probably doesn't even understand what just happened, and finds himself at the end of time, or the TVA, with Loki explaining that his entire universe is gone, but he's been chosen for something bigger. Imagine the trauma of that moment. 1 second you're fighting Doc Ock on a train, the next second mutants are attacking you, and then suddenly you're standing in a place outside of time itself, being told that Mary Jane, Aunt May, Harry, everyone you've ever known or loved just stopped existing. That kind of loss, that kind of survivor's guilt, turns Tobey into one of the most dangerous people in this conflict. He has nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. The other massive revelation from these new details is that the X-Men already know about incursions and are actively participating in destroying universes. They're not innocent victims trying to survive, they're making calculated decisions about which realities live and which ones die. According to Nerdrotic, they're going around taking advantage of this, which suggests they've been doing this for a while, systematically eliminating universes they deem necessary sacrifices to save their own reality and potentially others. This completely reframes their role in the story. They're not antagonists because they're evil. They're antagonists because they've made the cold, pragmatic choice that some universes have to die so others can live, and they've appointed themselves the executioners. From their perspective, they're heroes making impossible sacrifices. From Tobey's perspective, they're murderers who destroyed everything he cared about. Both viewpoints are valid, and that moral complexity is what makes this conflict so much more interesting than typical superhero movie battles, where there's a clear good guy and bad guy. There's also a theory floating around that the X-Men teaser we got might be completely out of chronological order. What if Cyclops blasting that optic beam in rage? What if the destroyed mansion and the apocalyptic tone, all of that happens before they attack Spider-Man's universe? The theory suggests that Sentinels attack the X-Men first, killing Jean Grey or Professor X, destroying their home, and leaving them broken and desperate. That's why they look so devastated in the teaser. That's why Magneto is playing chess with a ghost while everything burns around him. They've already lost something massive, and in their grief and desperation, they've decided that the only way to prevent further loss is to start destroying other universes before incursions destroy theirs. Cyclops unleashing that massive optic blast isn't him fighting Sentinels, it's him taking out his rage and pain on another reality that has to die. The X-Men we see attacking Spider-Man are already traumatized, already operating from a place of loss, which makes their actions even more tragic because they're perpetuating the same pain they experienced onto countless other universes. Then there's the timeline confusion that makes this even more complicated. The X-Men teaser could be set in 2027, the same timeline as Deadpool and Wolverine, which takes place years after the Fox X-Men movies ended. Monica Rambeau showing up, the connection to the Marvels. All of that suggests we're dealing with multiple time periods being shown non-chronologically throughout Doomsday. The movie might be cutting between different eras, different universes, different versions of these characters all dealing with the incursion crisis in their own ways. And throughout all of it, Dr. Doom is manipulating events from the astral plane or whatever multiversal observation point he's established. The theory that's gaining traction is that Doom is the one who sent the X-Men to Tobey's universe in the first place. He's been viewing the entire multiverse like a chessboard, positioning pieces, creating conflicts, orchestrating chaos because it serves his larger plan. The X-Men think they're making their own choices, that they're the ones deciding which universes live or die, but they're actually dancing to Doom's tune without even realizing it. Which brings us to the inevitable confrontation between Tobey and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine that's been rumored for months. Tobey survives the opening because Loki saves him, but he's completely traumatized by what happened. His entire world was destroyed by the X-Men, and even though he probably eventually learns that they thought they were doing the right thing, that intellectual understanding doesn't erase the emotional devastation. So when he comes face to face with Wolverine, who might have been part of that team, or at minimum represents the mutants who killed everyone Tobey loved, they're going to fight. Not a friendly sparring match, not a misunderstanding that gets cleared up with dialogue, but a genuine attempt to hurt each other driven by grief and rage and desperation. Both of them are broken in different ways. Both of them have lost everything. And both of them are being set up as major leads for Secret Wars, which means Doomsday needs to establish their characters and their relationship in a meaningful way. Having them fight first, really fight, and then eventually come to understand each other and work together, that's the arc that makes their partnership in the next film feel earned. This opening is somehow even more devastating than the original leak suggested, interrupting Spider-Man 2 mid-story and showing us that beloved universe getting destroyed in real time is the kind of bold, brutal storytelling that immediately establishes Doomsday as something different from every other MCU film. The X-Men aren't villains, but they're not heroes either. They're desperate people making terrible choices, and Doom is manipulating all of it from the shadows while everyone thinks they're in control of their own destinies. Tobey becomes the emotional anchor of the opening, the character whose loss we feel most acutely because we know his world, we've lived in it through 3 movies, and watching it end is going to hit harder than any death scene we've seen in these films before. The 18th of December 2026 is when everything changes. When the MCU stops playing it safe and starts showing us that in a multiversal war, nobody is protected, no universe is sacred, and even our most cherished stories can be erased in an instant.